Koji is a regular villager in a game-like world, and so he doesn't end up in one of Steve's villager farms. He completed a ton of side quests and leveled up all the way to level 999, so now he is virtually unstoppable. One day, while Koji is busy sitting in a tree, counting the money he earned today, he spots two level 1 bums down on the ground being attacked by a slime. The two are completely powerless at level 1, so they can do nothing but sit there and wait to be devoured by the slime. But at the last second before the slime could attack, Koji flicks one of his coins at the slime, killing it instantly. The father and son are both left dumbfounded by what just happened, but a moment later, Koji jumps down and asks them if they are all right. The two are thankfully unharmed thanks to Koji saving them, and Koji is glad to hear it. He then hands the boy a bunch of copper coins and tells him, "These are the drops you get for killing a slime, so hunting monsters is a really good way to earn money," and he encourages the boy to try it sometime, but the boy says he could never do something like that because monsters are too dangerous and scary. If the kid doesn't want to try it, then Koji isn't going to force him, so he begins walking away. But as he is leaving, the kid calls out to him and asks if Koji is a hero. But Koji casually points to his stat screen, revealing that he is a level 999 villager, and this leaves both of them absolutely stunned. In this world, people are assigned talents at birth, and aside from all the normal ones like warriors, sorcerers, and clerics, there are also some legendary titles such as the hero, king, or sage. And on the flip side of the power scaling, there's the absolutely useless and powerless class of villager. Most villagers are such bums that it is rare to see one who has managed to get past level 10, and as such, they are relegated to mundane tasks such as farming or innkeeping because there's nothing else they are good at. However, while that may be the case for most villagers, Koji is different. At the same time, elsewhere in the forest, there's a little girl running towards the entrance to a dark and scary-looking cave. And she is here looking for a legendary sword which is meant to be found deep inside, and she has decided to go in no matter how unprepared she may be. Meanwhile, back in town, Koji is heading back to the guild to give his daily report of his completed missions, and as his reward, he is given 5 gold pieces. The other adventurers present all turn their heads to look at Koji when they hear that he is receiving 5 gold pieces because that's a lot of money, and they can't help but wonder how many monsters Koji must have defeated to earn that much money, but Koji doesn't pay the whispers any mind and walks off. He seems to be saving up 10,000 gold because he is trying to get his hands on a special loot box, but he's only halfway to saving up the required amount, so he still has a long way to go. He heads back over to the quest board to pick out some new quests to work on, but on his way there, he overhears a few adventurers talking about how crazy all the monsters that appeared recently are. The capital apparently put up a job posting, requesting adventurers to investigate a place called the Ancient Cavern, and though it is incredibly dangerous, if you actually manage to succeed, you'll get paid a fortune. It pays 1 gold coin for every 30 blue devils you manage to kill, and with that kind of pricing, there's no way Koji would ever pass up the opportunity, so he decides to tackle the quest this afternoon. Meanwhile, in the middle of town, the hero, Rex, is busy giving a speech to the entire town about his goal of defeating all monsters and putting an end to the Demon King, and for that reason, he wants to employ any and all talented citizens to join his party in the fight against the Demon Lord. And to motivate them, both he and Kroll reveal their statuses as a hero and a sage. When the people see this, they all get very excited because it's not every day you get a chance to join the party of a sage and a hero, so they all start volunteering one after another. And there's even a warrior in the crowd who is over level 80, but Rex rejects him because he says the man isn't strong enough to contribute to the party's strength. As proof of this, Rex reveals that he is currently level 90, but the man doesn't think that's a fair reason to reject him when Kroll over there is only level 42. Rex admits that Kroll may be in the lower levels, but he points out that because she is a sage, she is bound to grow into the role of a legendary support as time goes on. And aside from that, she is also the 3rd princess of the kingdom, so her participation in the defeat of the Demon King will help stabilize the kingdom overall. The people can't exactly argue with that since he makes a good point, and they all still want to be part of the team, so the next to volunteer is an old priest. The priest thinks his holy powers will be an asset against the demons, but while that may be true, Rex still rejects him, claiming that the priest is too old for a journey like this, and if his health were to deteriorate along the journey, he would slow them down significantly. In that case, another priest in the crowd raises his hand and explains that he too is a level 80 priest, and he is only 20, so he should meet Rex's requirements, but despite the dude being a perfect fit, Rex still rejects him. And this time, he just gives a BS reason, saying he can't imagine the dude getting stronger in the future, so it's not worth it to recruit him. After that, yet another priest raises their hand, and this time, it's a cute 17-year-old girl. She asks if she meets Rex's requirements, and despite the fact that she's still inexperienced and only level 50, Rex immediately accepts her since it turns out he was just making excuses earlier because he didn't want to have a bunch of dudes in the party. Over on the sidelines, Koji hears all of this, and he thinks about how lucky they must be to get to travel with a hero and sage, along with all the prestige that will come with slaying the Demon King. But that said, Koji has no intention of actually applying, so he just stays where he is and keeps watching. Rex tells the crowd that he still has room for one more person on the team, and as he says that, a pretty witch lady with double D steps up, and Rex immediately accepts her as well for obvious reasons. Since the show is over, Koji decides to leave and go back to the quest he took out earlier, and he wants to get this done as soon as possible, so he heads inside the ancient cavern right away. Once inside, it doesn't take long before Koji runs into his first monster. And for any normal person, this would be a terrifying sight, but to Koji, this is just free loot. So he one-hit KOs the monster, and once it's dead, he goes to pick up the coins it dropped. He got just over 30 silver coins from it, and his monster kill count went up by 1, so he's on track to wrap this mission up before dinner time. Koji proceeds to walk through the cave while one-shotting each and every monster he comes across, and at one point, he receives a rare drop from one of the monsters, gaining a blue devil's horn. And blue devil horns fetch quite a high price at the market, so he plans to sell it later. But personally, he has never understood what the hype around these things was since they always seemed completely useless to him. Before long, Koji has already taken out 15 blue devils, and he's right on schedule to finish before dusk, but as he turns the corner looking for more monsters to kill, he ends up spotting the hero party. He ducks back behind the rocks because although the hero's party is definitely skilled, it seems like a bubble of drama just waiting to burst, and he doesn't want to get involved, so he leaves before they notice him. Just then, Tina mentions to the others that she just thought she sensed someone approaching just now even though there's no one else here. And Rex is so overconfident that he assumes it must have been one of the blue devils that spotted them and decided to run away before they could attack it. That aside, Parna asks Rex why he brought them down into the dungeon when their goal is to slay the Demon King, and the Demon King's castle is in the opposite direction from here, and Tina has also been curious about that. So Rex explains that they are here because there's a treasure hidden in this dungeon, and it's a legendary sword that only a hero above level 90 can wield. Both Tina and Parna are shocked when they learn of this, and Rex goes on to explain that they can get to it by following the royal crests laid out along the walls of this cave. Parna is still really confused, since if there really was such a legendary weapon sitting here all this time, then why didn't the royal family lend it to someone so they could fight the Demon King? Rex admits that though the hero class is rare, it is far from unique, so there are several other heroes scattered all across the country. But the royal family never entrusted any of them with the sword, simply because they were scared of letting someone else hold that kind of power. They were hoping that someday, someone in the royal family would awaken a hero class so they wouldn't have to give up control, but that didn't happen. And since Rex was a hero traveling with the third princess, they decided he was close enough and told him where to get the sword. Rex is certain that he will be able to defeat the Demon Lord if he fights with the sword, so he tells everyone to hurry up so they can finally start their mission in earnest. Meanwhile, elsewhere in the cave, that little girl from earlier is still busy searching for the legendary sword, and from the horns protruding from her head, it's clear that she's a demon. On Koji's end, he has just taken down his 28th demon, and he is pretty pleased with himself because he has already earned 950 silver, and he has almost met his quota. So he will be able to return home soon. That said, he does think it's a little weird that there have been so many blue devils in the area lately. Just then, the girl from earlier runs past Koji, and he tries to warn her that it's not safe to go down that path since there are demons over there. But to his surprise, the girl runs right past the demons without any trouble, and seeing that gives him an idea of what she truly is. Back on the hero party's end, they have all been fighting non-stop to make their way to the room where the legendary sword is held, but when they get there, they find the girl standing in front of the stone with the sword missing. They are immediately put on guard since no one else should know about this place, and they can sense strong mana from her, so they are beginning to suspect that she might be a demon. They demand to know what she did with the sword, and the girl is panicking a little, trying to explain that she didn't actually take the sword, and that it was gone when she got here. Parna admits that it doesn't look like the girl has anywhere to hide the sword as she is now, but that aside, the fact that she has horns is proof that she's a demon. And demons are the sworn enemies of humans, so even though she's a kid, they have to eliminate her. They all begin casting attack spells at her, But just before the girl gets absolutely wasted, Koji rushes in front of her and stops the attack. The others are shocked that someone was able to stop their attacks so casually, and at first they are worried that Koji might be a demon as well because he's protecting the girl, but Koji manages to gaslight them into believing that the horns on the girl's head are just hair accessories because he felt bad for her and didn't want her to get hunted. But even though the hero's party is now convinced that the girl is really human, they are still suspicious of the fact that she was in the legendary sword room and that the sword is missing now. Hearing them mention the sword, Koji recalls that he was in this cave exploring a few months ago, and he happened to come across the sword in the stone, and since it didn't seem to belong to anyone, he decided to take it for himself and sell it at a pawn shop for some extra money. He apologizes for that since he had no idea that the sword was important at the time, but Rex and the others can't believe what they are hearing, because that sword was imbued with magic that should make it impossible for anyone other than a hero to pick it up. Koji admits that the sword was pretty heavy when he tried picking it up, but he was able to power through with brute force in the end. The group finds it hard to believe Koji's story since it sounds so ridiculous, so to prove it to them, Koji casually picks up the stone that was holding the sword, a feat which should be even more impossible than just pulling out the sword with brute force. In astonishment, they all ask Koji what his level is, and Koji informs them that he is level 999, which absolutely stuns the group. They'd have a hard time believing it if they weren't looking at his stats screen right now, but the fact remains that he basically stole and lost the treasure that they were going to use to defeat the Demon Lord. So Krull asks Koji to join their party and use his strength to help them defeat the Demon Lord. However, to her surprise, Koji refuses outright because he doesn't really like the idea of getting involved, and the Demon King has never done anything to him personally. Of course, he's not saying the hero party is wrong for wanting to take out the Demon King, but he just wants no part in it. He then takes the girl and walks out of the dungeon, and as they reach the exit, he lets go of her hand and prepares to head home. But all of a sudden, the girl calls out to Koji and asks him to marry her, which is the last thing he expected to hear from her. Koji isn't a billionaire, so he has no interest in minors and keeps walking away, but the girl chases after him and begs him to wait. Koji flat out tells her that he can't marry a kid like her, but Alice tells him it doesn't have to be right now, and she's willing to wait a couple of years. Koji really isn't comfortable with this conversation, so he changes the subject and asks why she was after the legendary sword in the first place. So she explains that her father is the Demon King, and he has been really sick lately, and she was worried that in his current state, if the heroes manage to get their hands on the sword, then they might be able to kill him. Koji is surprised to hear that the Demon King has been sick for the past year since he was fine the last time Koji saw him, and Alice is surprised to learn that Koji knows her father, but Koji says he just happened to run into the Demon King once or twice a couple of years back. Alice asks if that's why he refused to help the heroes kill the Demon King, but Koji says that's not it. He just doesn't think killing the Demon Lord would do any good. After all, the whole problem was caused by the fact that demons release miasma that in turn creates monsters that attack humans. The demons themselves don't inherently wish to harm humans, but simply by being around, they cause humans to suffer. So doing something like killing the Demon King would be pointless in the long run. Alice says she's trying to work towards peaceful coexistence between humans and demons, and to do that, she needs to prove that both species can get along, which is why she wants to marry Koji, but Koji still refuses, and he tells Alice that what she's hoping for is pretty much impossible. Demons are pretty much no different from humans, aside from the fact that their miasma creates monsters, and everyone already knows that. But the humans keep trying to kill demons in order to stop the monster attacks, and demons have to kill humans to defend themselves, only further fueling the resentment. As depressing as that cycle sounds, Koji says that's just the way the world works, and there's nothing they can do about it. Meanwhile, back in the dungeon, the hero party is busy trying to think of what to do now that the legendary sword is gone. Krull says they are going to need to come up with a new plan, so for now they should return to town to regroup, but something is clearly bothering Rex because just before Koji left, he leaned in and told him he simply doesn't understand how the world works yet, and Rex can't help but feel like Koji knows something he doesn't, but until he can find out what that thing is. He plans to do everything in his power to become strong enough to complete their mission. As Koji is walking back to the city, he notices that Alice has been following him this entire time, and he is getting sick of it, so he asks her what she wants now since he already turned down her marriage proposal, but Alice tells him that's not it. Sure, she'd be happy if Koji agreed to marry her, but since he said no, she was actually hoping he could buy something for her. Her dad's condition is pretty bad at the moment, so she wanted to get some spirit water to help cure him, but the medicine is only sold in the human town, and Alice can't go there since, with the miasma leaking from her horns, people would find out that she's a demon instantly. She also mentions that she brought the money to buy it, and as she says this, she pulls out a bag of 500 silver coins, but Koji tells her the spirit water actually costs 10 gold coins, so what she has isn't nearly enough. Alice had no idea the medicine was going to be so expensive, so she asks Koji if he would be willing to lend her the money to buy it. Koji doesn't answer right away and instead asks if she thinks the medicine is really going to solve anything, because even if her dad gets better, the humans are still going to be after him, and eventually, they'll manage to kill him, so he asks if she doesn't hold at least some resentment towards humanity for it. But from Alice's perspective, hating humanity wouldn't help her solve her problems, which is why she instead chooses to focus her energy on trying to unite the humans and demons so they can all get along, especially since she knows there are humans out there like Koji who aren't hostile towards demons. Koji is surprised by her answer, but he can respect the dedication, so he agrees to help her pay for the medicine, but only on the condition that she comes with him back to town. Alice tries telling him she can't go there because her horns will give her away, but Koji already thought of that, so he pulls out a ribbon, and to her surprise, the miasma stops leaking out altogether. She is absolutely amazed by the properties of the ribbon, so she asks Koji how he made it, and he explains that he got the materials for it by destroying a monster spawn crystal right as it was about to spawn something. He's not exactly sure how it works, but like this, Alice should be able to enter town with him with no problems at all. Once they get into town, Alice is amazed by everything around her because this is her first time in a city like this. A stall owner nearby notices how awestruck Alice is, and figuring that this must be her first time in the city, he gives her an apple on the house as a welcome gift. Alice is very grateful and thanks the man, and as she and Koji keep walking, she asks Koji how much an apple like this costs. Since Alice doesn't seem to have a good grasp on how much money is worth, he explains that the apple is worth 150 copper coins, and 10,000 copper coins is equal to 1 silver coin, which is enough to get you a whole feast. 1,000 silver coins is equal to 1 gold coin, which can buy you a small house. That means 10 gold coins is quite a large sum of money to pay for the spirit water, and in fact, it is so expensive that even some nobles can't afford it. Alice asks Koji if he's really okay with spending that much money for her, but he says it's fine since he can probably just get the Demon King to pay it back later. After having dinner with Alice, Koji takes her back to his room and tells her to wait here for a moment because there's someone he wants to bring over. But when Koji finally gets back, Alice is scared half to death because he brought a big, burly man with him. She faints on the spot out of fright, but after she regains consciousness, Koji explains that this is his friend, Takako, and though she may not look like it, she is actually a female level 124 monk. He tells Alice she doesn't have to worry about Takako, because he already told her about the fact that Alice is a demon, and Takako doesn't really mind. There was once a time in Takako's life that she thought all demons needed to be eradicated, but then one day, while she was injured and on the verge of dying, a demon saved her life, and ever since then, she gave up the idea of hunting demons. They plan to escort Alice back to the Demon Lord's castle tomorrow. But all of a sudden, monsters begin raining down from the sky, and it is revealed that a demon general is the one behind the attack. He addresses the entire town and tells them to submit to the power of the demons because this is an invasion, and he is certain they don't have the power to fight back against this many monsters. But when Koji comes face to face with one of the boars, he just casually throws it into the air to take out one of the birds, but then he realizes the money just dropped somewhere in town, so he rushes off to go pick it up. While he is busy doing that, Takako is protecting Alice, but they soon end up coming across the hero party, and they are currently trying to rally the people to fight back against the demons and shoot the birds down with all the firepower they have. Just as they are about to unleash a barrage into the sky, Koji shows up and stops them. He tells the group that what they are about to do is incredibly dumb because they didn't stop to consider the fact that if they miss any of their shots, it's going to fall right back down on top of them. And even if they do manage to take all the birds down, that will just force the demon to release all of his monsters at once. Krull admits that Koji has a point, but she asks him if he has any better ideas, and to that, Koji tells her that he's going to go up and talk to the demon general to figure out what he wants. The others think that's a terribly risky idea, but before they know it, Koji has already leapt into the air, and with a little boost from Takako, he manages to land on the back of the demon general's bird so he can talk. The demon is shocked and asks how Koji managed to get up here, assuming he must be a hero, but Koji explains that he's just a villager and he simply jumped up here. The demon general thinks he must be lying since there's no way a villager could do something like that, and Koji doesn't want to waste time trying to convince him, so he just shows him his stat screen. The demon is now even more shocked when he realizes that Koji is level 999, and he deems him to be too great a threat to leave alone. So he immediately casts several fire spells to attack him, but even though the spells were a direct hit, they did absolutely no damage to Koji and simply burned his shirt off. The demon is shaken because he's starting to realize he stands no chance of beating Koji like this, but Koji tells him there's no need to worry because he's not here to fight, and he has no intention of killing the Demon Lord either. In fact, he and the Demon Lord happen to be acquaintances, and he even has the Demon Lord's daughter, Alice, under his care right now. The demon is surprised that Koji knows about Alice, and he asks if this means Koji is on the side of the demons, but Koji clarifies that he simply has no interest in killing demons. Anyway, the reason he came up here in the first place was because he had a question for the demon, so he asks him if the Demon Lord was really the one who ordered this attack. The demon thinks that's a stupid question, because of course the Demon Lord would be the one to authorize an attack like this, and he asks why Koji would even bother asking such an obvious question. So Koji explains that according to what Alice told him, the Demon Lord was currently too sick to move right now, and that means he'd be in no condition to order an invasion. So he asks the demon if he really recalls receiving the order for the invasion directly from the Demon Lord. The demon general thinks for a moment, and he eventually realizes that although the Demon Lord was present when the order was given, he didn't do anything or move from his chair the entire time. And the one who actually gave the order was his advisor. It's clear that something isn't right, so the demon general plans to head back as soon as he can to confront the advisor and demand answers, but Koji tells him to wait because there's one more thing he wants to do. He then grabs one of the birds and proceeds to jump from bird to bird, killing them one after another. The demon general asks him what he thinks he's doing. So Koji explains that since he's here anyway, he thought he might as well earn some money by taking out a few monsters. On the ground, the others are shocked as they see Koji taking out several birds all by himself, but they don't have time to stand there in awe because there are still several people in need of assistance right now. In the meantime, Koji continues destroying birds until the last one left is the one he and the Demon General are standing on. The Demon General demands to know what Koji thinks he is doing since he still needs to get back to the Demon Castle and find out if the Demon Lord is really being controlled, but Koji tells him he's going to have to be patient because it probably isn't safe for him to return right away. If the Demon Lord really is being controlled, then whoever is behind it would see the Demon General as a threat if he suddenly returned and started asking questions. So the best way to handle the situation is to claim his entire force was wiped out and sneak back into the castle, so he can gather information without drawing too much attention to himself. With that said, Koji then stomps on the final bird, destroying it instantly and sending both himself and the Demon General plummeting to the ground. The Demon General is absolutely terrified, but Koji tells him there's nothing to worry about since they are both pretty strong, so a fall like this won't be enough to kill them, probably. A little while later, after falling to the ground, Koji has finished gathering all the coins from the birds he killed, and now he is just waiting for the Demon General to wake up. The Demon General eventually regains consciousness, and he is amazed that Koji was able to handle a fall like that without taking any damage. Koji then begins loading all the coins into a bag and asks the Demon General what his name is because he's getting tired of calling him the Demon General all the time, and he is informed that his name is Menno. He goes on to explain that he has served the Demon Lord and Princess Alice for 3 years now, but Koji doesn't really care about all that, so he goes back to packing up his coins. Menno asks Koji if he really isn't going to kill him, and Koji says he wouldn't feel right killing someone who cares so much about the Demon Lord and Alice. Menno doesn't understand why a human like Koji would care about what happens to a demon, but Koji says that if it weren't for the fact that the mana from demons causes monsters to spawn, then humans and demons would be able to get along just fine. But because of how things are, humans attack demons in an attempt to stop monsters from spawning, and demons attack humans to defend themselves. He then carries the bag of coins on his back and tells Menno that he will come back tomorrow morning with Alice so all of them can head to the demon castle together. Menno is surprised that Koji is willing to step into enemy territory so casually, but Koji says he made a promise to Alice to get her home safely, and besides, he wants to see what the situation over there is like for himself. The next morning, everyone in town is busy rebuilding, and Koji is currently having breakfast with Alice before they begin their journey back to the castle. Alice thanks him for managing to talk things out with Menno instead of killing him, and Koji says it was thankfully pretty easy since Menno was a reasonable guy. On that note, it's about time they head out to meet him in Feb Forest, so Koji, Alice, and Takako head out together. When Menno sees them approaching, he comes out of the bushes and kneels before Alice to apologize for attacking the city she was currently visiting. Alice tells him there's no need to apologize since there's no way he could have known, and Menno is grateful that she understands, but just then, He notices Takako standing there, and although he knows Koji isn't a threat, he is still wary about other humans, so he puts his guard up. However, before he could attack, Alice gets in front of Takako and tells Meno that there's no need to worry because Takako is a friend of hers, and she has been protecting her alongside Koji. Hearing that calms Menao down, so he and Takako introduce themselves to one another. But just as they are about to start heading to the demon castle, Rex and the other members of the hero party suddenly jump out of the bushes and surround them. They had suspected that something was off about Koji ever since they ran into him last time, and their suspicions have been confirmed because he is clearly working with the demons, so they are going to purge him. Koji admits that they did a good job spying on him to get evidence, but they really didn't think this through much because what's the point of surrounding them and announcing their intention to attack when Koji could completely squad wipe them if he wanted to. To demonstrate this, he flash steps in front of Krull and gives her a light bonk on the head, but even though it's clear that they stand no chance of winning here, Rex still keeps swinging his sword because he refuses to give up until he has gotten rid of all the evil demons. However, Koji asks him why he believes demons are evil in the first place. He won't deny the fact that the mana from demons causes harm to humans in the form of monsters, but that doesn't mean demons are inherently evil, and Alice is proof of that. The other day they agreed to let her go because she didn't seem like a threat, but not only is Alice a demon, she also happens to be the Demon Lord's daughter, yet they couldn't tell the difference. Koji acknowledges that demon mana does cause harm, and that's why he doesn't plan to stop them from killing the Demon Lord, but he believes demons aren't inherently evil. The group is starting to understand Koji's point, but even if Alice isn't evil, Tina points out that Mena must be evil since he attacked the city and a lot of people got hurt because of him. And yeah, Koji doesn't really have a comeback for that, so the best he can do is apologize on Menao's behalf. They technically have every right to want to arrest Menao for what he did, but Koji asks if they could give him some time because he wants to head over to the Demon Lord's castle and take a look around because he knows the Demon Lord would never order an attack on a human city. After all, the only thing the Demon Lord wants is peaceful coexistence with the humans. Rex scoffs and says that there's no way Koji could know that for sure, but Koji says he heard it from the Demon Lord himself, so he is pretty sure. The others are surprised to learn that Koji has met with the Demon Lord before, and Koji goes on to ask them if any of them have ever heard of demons attacking a human town before now. Sure, the mana from the Demon Lord's horns does create monsters that may attack from time to time, but that doesn't mean the Demon Lord was the one personally controlling them. The others all think Koji is making some solid points, but Parna, on the other hand, doesn't care about a single thing he has to say and attacks with a fireball. She then tells the others that there's a good chance that Koji has been brainwashed by the demons, so they can't trust anything he says. Koji figured it wouldn't be that easy to convince them to stop hating demons, so he grabs the others and they all start running away. Rex and his team want to chase after them, but Tina falls over, so they are forced to check up on her. By the time they resume their chase, Koji and the others are already long gone. And Rex is trying to convince himself that he is doing the right thing by fighting to eradicate all demons since it's the only way to stop monsters from spawning. But Parna never questioned her motivation for a second because she remembers her loved ones being killed right in front of her by a demon, and no amount of talk no jutsu would ever be enough to make her forgive demonkind for that. Later that night, Koji and the others set up camp, while they plan out the route they are going to take to the demon castle, and according to the map, they are going to have to head through the Athros Islands, but that's still a long way from here. So for now, Takako thinks their immediate goal should be to get to the town of Salmaria since it's a lot closer. However, there's still the problem of dealing with Meno's demonic mana since they wouldn't want him getting found out. The best solution would be to use one of the cloths that Koji gave Alice to suppress her mana, but he only has one of those, so Meno is going to have to stay hidden as much as possible. Moving on, since Meno was sent to attack Velmo, Koji asks if that also means attacks were launched in other places like Salmaria, and Meno confirms it, but he clarifies that the initial attack was only meant to send a message, so the real invasion is yet to happen. When they arrive at Salmaria, to avoid drawing suspicion, Koji brings a ton of devil horns along since they can use the demonic mana coming from those to mask Meno's presence. As they arrive at the city entrance, the guard can immediately tell that something is off about their carriage since he can sense a lot of demonic energy coming from it. But Alice grabs one of the blue devil horns and tells the guard the mana is coming from it. They say they brought the blue devil horns here to sell, and the guard completely believes their story, even informing them that there's currently a parade going through town to celebrate their recent victory over the demon forces that tried to invade their city. However, from what Menao told them earlier, they know that the invasion the people believe they thwarted was nothing more than a preliminary attack. So with them all busy celebrating like this, if the real invasion were to start, they'd all end up either dead or enslaved, and at that point, human and demon coexistence would be impossible. They are going to need to stop the invasion before it happens by getting to the demon castle before then, but unfortunately, the city gates are closed for the festival at night, so they are going to have to wait till tomorrow to get back on the road. Koji decides to take Alice to a nearby restaurant so they can have dinner there, but as soon as they step inside, they come face to face with Rex and his crew, who just so happen to come to this town as well. And as soon as they realize Koji is here too, they all get up to chase after him again. Koji grabs Alice and runs out into an alleyway to shake them off, but just when he thought things couldn't get any worse, all of a sudden, a giant level 200 monster falls from the sky and lands in the city, and several more follow shortly after, causing absolute chaos. Koji can't let the monsters destroy the city, so he immediately jumps in and begins fighting them off. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, the hero party is still looking for Koji, but they lost him a while ago since he's so fast. Tina suggests they could inform the locals of the fact that Koji is currently working with the demons, since she's sure they'd all be willing to help look for him if they knew the situation. However, Rex doesn't think that's such a good idea, because as much as he hates to admit it, Koji could wipe them out at any point if he wanted to. So it'd be a bad idea to put him in a position where he's cornered by an angry mob because he might lash out and hurt the citizens. The others agree that it'd be risky to do something like that, but Krull doesn't actually think Koji is the kind of person to put innocent people in harm's way. After all, if he really wanted to, he could have just gotten rid of them back in the forest, but instead, he chose to try to talk things out even though they were attacking him. And after listening to Krull's point, Rex agrees with her that Koji may not be as bad as they initially thought, but Parna is still insistent that anyone who works with demons must be absolutely evil. Rex understands why she'd feel that way, but he still thinks that right now, their best course of action would be to let Koji go. Parna can't believe that Rex really intends to stop trying to capture Koji even though he's traveling with the Demon Lord's daughter, and she accuses him of siding with the demons as well. But Rex assures her that he is still very much against the demons. He just knows there is more to Koji's story than meets the eye, so he wants to ask him a few questions first before they do anything, and both Krull and Tina agree because they also have questions for Koji, so Parna is forced to go along with it as well. All of a sudden, they all hear the sound of countless citizens screaming in panic, so Krull rushes over to see what's happening and offer her help, and she arrives just in time to save one of the citizens who is about to be crushed thanks to her divine shield. She asks the man to get up and run since her spell isn't going to last very long against this kind of force, but the man can't move at all right now, so he tells her to just forget about him and run while she still can. However, Krull absolutely refuses to abandon him because it is her duty as a royal to make sure she protects her subjects. Unfortunately, before long, the monster manages to break through her shield, leaving Krull and the man completely defenseless, but just as it was about to crush them both, Koji arrives just in time to block the attack. He had seen how hard Krull fought to defend that man, and he is impressed. He didn't think she had that kind of willpower in her. He then takes care of the monster with one punch, and now that it's safe, Krull tells the man to get himself to safety. The man thanks her for her help and runs off just as Rex and the others arrive, and they freeze when they see Koji, but Krull breaks the ice by telling them that Koji just saved her. Hearing that, Rex relaxes a little and asks what happened here, so Koji explains that they were just attacked by a level 200 monster, but he took care of it. Rex can't believe what he just heard and asks Koji what skill he used to defeat a monster that powerful, but Koji says he didn't actually use any skills, he just punched it really hard. Rex finds it hard to believe that such a monster could be taken down by a basic attack like that, but Krull assures him that what Koji just said is true because she saw it herself. Just then, Alice catches up to Koji, and she becomes really nervous when she sees Rex and the others since she thinks they are going to attack her again, but Rex clarifies that they just want to talk and ask him a few questions. Koji is willing to answer whatever questions they may have, but he says it's going to have to wait until after he's done dealing with the situation in town. However, before Koji runs off, Parna asks him if he really isn't trying to help the demons win the war, but Koji has no idea where she got that idea from because he has made it clear from the very beginning that he is neutral. As Koji says this, one of the city's guards comes running up to everyone and yells for them to run away immediately. Rex assumes this must be about the large monsters that landed in town, but the guard explains that it's much worse than that because he just saw a massive army of monsters, roughly 10,000 strong, marching towards the city. They are all shocked when they hear this, and if what the guard says is true, then the people in this town don't stand a chance. Rex says they are going to have to withdraw and get as many people as possible to safety, and Krull asks Koji for his help. He says he's more than happy to help, But first he needs to call his friends back at the inn, and in the meantime, he asks the hero party to help him look after Alice. They are all shocked to hear him say this because they've already made it clear that demons are their sworn enemies. And Rex asks why Koji would be willing to leave Alice in their care when they could just kill her the second he's gone. However, Koji points out that if Rex really intended to kill her, he wouldn't try to warn him about it in advance. And besides, they said they have questions they want him to answer, and they won't be able to get any answers out of him if he found out they hurt Alice. Parna points out that she, for one, has no interest in asking Koji any questions, so she has no reason to leave Alice alive, and Koji doesn't really have anything to say to that, so he once again asks them to please look after her for him before running off. Parna tells Alice that it looks like Koji has abandoned her, but Alice says that's not true. He just trusts them enough to believe they won't harm her, and if Koji trusts them, then Alice is going to choose to trust them as well. Kroll assures Alice that she has nothing to fear because she has come to learn that Koji isn't a bad person and that at the very least, Alice isn't a dangerous demon, so they intend to keep their promise and protect her. After that, Alice and the others help direct the citizens as they evacuate the city while Koji runs off on his own. A short while later, Takako and Meno end up meeting up with the hero party, but strangely, Koji isn't with them. And neither Meno nor Takako have actually seen Koji even though he said he was going to call them. So Alice can't help but worry because she has no idea what Koji is up to. Just then, a guard runs up to the group and asks for their help because he just saw a man run out to face the entire monster army by himself, and he is worried because he thinks the guy stands no chance, so he begs them to go save him. Everyone realizes that the person he is referring to must be Koji, and Alice starts to get worried. She knows Koji most likely decided to try to defeat the monsters on his own, since if this city were to be destroyed, it would make the rift between humans and demons even wider, and coexistence would become practically impossible. But even with how strong Koji is, he's still going to have a lot of trouble dealing with such a large army. So everyone decides to head to the front line to help him. Meanwhile, out on the battlefield, Koji is currently doing his best to fight off the army of monsters that are closing in, and as the others arrive, they spot him in the middle of an intense fight. The hero party members ask Takako why Koji chose to come out and fight by himself even though he had people there to support him, and she explains that it's likely because he doesn't want anyone else to die. Kroll asks what Takako means by that, so she goes on to explain that Koji fights for the sake of both humans and demons, and if anyone from either side were to die, it would make it that much more difficult for him to achieve unification with all the growing resentment. Rex is surprised to learn that Koji's goal is the unification of both races, but even at level 999, fighting a horde of monsters like that is just plain reckless, and Takako agrees with him. But she says Koji has never cared about things like whether a decision is reckless or not. In fact, he has no fear of dying at all, and the only thing that continues to drive him is the will to accomplish his goal. Rex asks what could possibly have happened to Koji to make him so determined to achieve his goal, and Takako explains that Koji's backstory isn't all that different from Rex's, because just like Rex, when Koji was young, his father was killed by a monster, and at first, Koji too swore vengeance on all demons for what happened to his father, and he began to train relentlessly to get strong enough to exact his revenge. He soon realized that the villager class was built to be weak, and attempting to fight monsters as a villager would put his life in constant danger, even against the weakest of monsters. This is why no villagers ever bothered trying to fight monsters to begin with, but Koji never gave up, and after a while, he realized that in exchange for being weaker than all the other classes, villagers are able to level up much faster than others as long as they put in the work. By the age of 9, Koji had already reached level 53, but one day, as he was heading home as usual, he discovered that his entire village had been raided by bandits, and everyone, including his mother, had been killed. At this point in Koji's life, his father had been killed by monsters, and his mother had been killed by humans, and through the trauma and pain of the whole situation, Koji came to a realization. After his father had been killed, he swore to eradicate demons as revenge. So was he going to do the same and swear to eradicate all humans as well because humans were the ones who killed his mother? Simply because a small group from one race did something terrible doesn't justify eradicating the entire race, and that's why Koji is trying to put a stop to the war. After hearing all this, Rex comes to the realization that he may have been too close-minded about his views on demons, and Kroll thinks the same. But she still has a question she'd like to ask Koji, since she remembers him admitting that demons are indeed dangerous because they create monsters, so she wants to hear how he plans to handle that if he truly seeks world peace. To make sure she gets the chance to ask him in person, Kroll prepares to join Koji in battle, and Rex and the others agree to go with her. but Parna makes it clear that she still hasn't changed her mind about demons. Menno and Takako also plan to join Koji, so Takako tells Alice to find somewhere safe to hide in the meantime before rushing out to join the fight. Meanwhile, Koji is starting to run out of steam since he has been fighting all these monsters for a while now, and his recovery skill isn't able to keep up with all the damage he has been taking, so things aren't looking good for him. He ends up getting pinned down by a group of monsters, but before they could take him out, he is saved by a blast of holy lightning from Rex. Koji is shocked to see that the hero party actually came to help him, and he asks what they are doing here, so Krull says she still has questions she wants to ask him, so she can't let him die out here. And Rex says that as a hero, he can't leave Koji to do all the fighting by himself. Menao and Takako also join in soon after, and while they are holding the monsters off, Tina walks up to Koji and starts healing him because he's in pretty bad shape. Koji tells them they really shouldn't be out here because there's a good chance they might die, but Krull assures him that no one is going to die and they won't let Koji die either, so he should put his faith in them. Koji understands, so after Tina is done healing him, he gets up and tells everyone to take out as many monsters as they can and retreat if things get too dangerous because he doesn't want to lose anyone out here tonight. However, even though Koji says all that, it's not long before he gets blindsided by a giant boulder from one of the monsters, and he ends up getting injured pretty badly. But since he's not alone anymore, Tina comes over to heal him again while the others cover for him, and Koji has to admit that it's nice to have a full team he can rely on. A little while later, we see Parna in a meeting with the king, and she's here snitching on Krull for agreeing to help Koji. The king is certainly surprised to learn that a level 999 villager really exists, and he is even more surprised that Krull, who had been raised to hate demons, was able to be convinced to work towards coexistence. But he doesn't understand why Parna chose to come to him with this information instead of joining Koji as well. He asks her if she hopes snitching would earn her some kind of reward, but Parna says she doesn't need anything from the king. She just wants to make sure that all demons end up eliminated, and she will do whatever it takes to achieve that goal. Meanwhile, over on Koji and the others' end, Koji currently has Rex out trying to use his hero status to recruit employees for Koji's casino, but despite his popularity as a hero, Rex isn't getting many applicants since people think it's weird that the hero is recruiting for a casino of all things. Koji is a bit disappointed that the recruitment is going so poorly and asks Rex if he can work a little harder to convince people. But Tina tells him this whole thing is his fault because they spent the past 2 months preparing to open the casino, and Koji didn't realize he had no employees until just weeks before it was set to open. Koji apologizes for the screw-up, but he says he didn't spend the time doing absolutely nothing because he managed to find a monster spawn block at one point and used it to make a mana-concealing cloth for Menao. Now Menao should have no problem staying in the city without alerting anyone to the fact that he's a demon, but even though he knows the cloth is effective, he still can't help but worry if this will really keep his identity hidden. Takako tells him he has nothing to worry about since the cloth really does block out all his demonic mana, and she asks him if he's got some time to spare because she needs some help setting up for the grand opening. Back with the others, they are talking about how Esteller only gave them 10 months to gather the money to buy that mystery item in the guild, and since Koji had already been saving up to buy it before now, he has 5,000 gold coins prepared, but the item costs 10,000 gold coins, so they need to find a way to double his money. Even if they won the lottery, the payout would only be around 10 gold coins, which wouldn't be anywhere near enough to earn the 10,000, so Koji decided a casino would be the best option instead. Krull thinks it would have been nice if Parna were still with them because she might have some advice on how to fix the current situation, but she quit the party 2 months ago after Koji explained his plan to open a casino. It's not that she thought the casino was a ridiculous idea, because she actually thought Koji's plan made perfect sense given the circumstances, but that said, she only joined the hero's party in order to get rid of all demons, and if that is no longer their goal, then she sees no reason to remain there. Koji understood her point of view, and he had no intention of stopping her from leaving, so from that day forward, Parna was no longer a part of their party. However, Koji really would have liked it if she had stayed, since she would have made a great bunny girl for the casino. For now, Koji decides to try revising his flyers to make them seem more enticing, but the others tell him his revisions make them look more like a scam than a job posting, so they should probably keep the flyers as they are and try spreading out across town to recruit people instead. Koji agrees, so they split up and start handing out flyers, and Alice is really enjoying herself because she never thought she'd be able to have such a fun experience with friends. But just then, a man approaches her and introduces himself as David. David informs Alice that he's here on orders from the king to bring Krull back with him to the capital, and he was informed that Alice had recently joined Krull's party, so he asks her if she knows where Krull is. Koji overhears all this, And he realizes this might be bad because if the king is trying to get Krull to return, then he might be aware of Alice being a demon. So before David can say another word, Koji screams, "Hey everyone, this man is here to meet a little girl," and instantly all eyes lock onto David because the people now believe he's a weirdo. David desperately tries to explain that he didn't do anything wrong, but it's too late because the guards have already been called and they are just about to drag David away when, all of a sudden, Alice speaks up and tells the guards to let him go because David didn't do anything to her. With Alice's testimony, David is released, and Alice begins scolding Koji for nearly ruining David's life for no reason. She also apologizes to David for the trouble, but David is just thankful that Alice is such a good person and he can see how someone like Alice managed to earn the trust of Krull. A little while later, Rex and the others come over since they heard the commotion earlier, and Krull is shocked to see David of all people here. They all sit down together to talk, and Krull asks David if he's really here to take her back. So David explains that he's here on orders from the king to see if it's true that Krull and Rex have abandoned their hunt for the Demon Lord and decided to stay in this town. And subsequently, he is also meant to investigate Koji since the king suspects that Koji might have seduced Krull into abandoning her duty. That said, the report they recently received also mentioned that they had been training to achieve a certain goal, so if David determines that that goal is still in the best interests of the kingdom, then he won't need to take Krull back with him. Krull immediately speaks up and tells David that she absolutely has not abandoned her duties because she and the others have still been training hard every single day and defeating monsters to grow stronger. And as for the reason she chose to join Koji, she points out the fact that he's level 999, which is a great feat, so she and Rex are staying by his side so they can learn as much from him as possible. David thinks that all sounds pretty convincing, but then he turns his attention towards Koji and mentions that he had heard about Koji's achievements back in Salmaria, and since he has so much power at his disposal, David asks him why he doesn't just kill the Demon Lord by himself. Koji knows he can't just start explaining his stance on human-demon coexistence, so instead, he makes up an excuse and tells David he is seriously overestimating what a demon can do. He reminds David that he wasn't even up against the Demon Lord himself. He was just fighting one of his lackeys, yet he was barely able to win, so he'd stand no chance against the real Demon Lord as a villager. Since that's the story Koji and the others are going with, David decides to let Krull stay for now, but he says he will also be staying to assist their efforts while keeping an eye on Krull. Koji isn't too thrilled when he hears that since he knows it means David is going to be keeping an eye on them, but that aside, David recalls hearing that they were trying to hire staff. So he asks if he could take a look at the flyers they came up with because he might be able to help with them. After making a few changes and handing out a few more flyers, all of a sudden, there's a line of people waiting to apply at the casino. Koji is surprised the response could change this much thanks to a few changes from David, and he asks David what exactly he did. So he explains that he just emphasized the benefits the job provides and made it seem less scam-like overall, and people were more than happy to apply after that. A few moments later, Takako comes over to finish up the setup for the casino, and she is surprised to see such a long line of applicants out here when no one was interested in the job earlier, and Koji informs her that it's all thanks to this guy over here. Takako is really glad to meet David since she likes hardworking and competent men like him, and while she's introducing herself, Koji tells Rex that he should be a little careful around David since he's probably up to something. Rex doesn't think they need to worry about David betraying them since he has been serving the royal family since before Krull was born, but despite that, Koji still finds it odd that David would stay here just to confirm their story, so at least until they are sure he can be trusted, he warns Alice and Menno to be careful around him. Afterwards, Koji and the others head into the dungeon to continue their training, and Rex is set to face off against a goblin, so he has Krull buff him before charging up a punch. However, Koji stops Rex and tells him that there's no point in this training if he's just going to buff his stats first. Rex asks why since, at his current level, he should still gain experience from fighting a Varsec goblin mage like this, but while that may be true, Koji reminds him that he will receive more experience only when he is at a greater disadvantage. From what Koji has learned, your level goes up only when you hit a certain amount of experience, and the amount of experience you receive depends on how difficult your battle was. So if you fight a monster while having worse stats than it, you will gain far more XP than normal, but using buffs to strengthen yourself will reduce the amount of XP you gain. That's why Koji wants Rex to fight without relying on any buffs for now, and if he ends up getting into trouble, Koji will jump in to save him, and Krull will heal him. Rex understands, so he rushes in against the goblin mage and punches it in the face, but while his punch did connect, it didn't do much damage. So the goblin blasts him with fire, and Krull has to put Rex out with water magic to keep him from burning to death. Once the fire is out, Alice rushes up to Rex to hand him a healing potion so he can recover, and Koji tells Rex to remember that he likely won't be able to beat monsters in one hit, so he needs to work on whittling down its health over time. Rex is prepared to keep fighting, but fighting at a disadvantage is really taking a toll on him since he keeps getting beat up over and over again. Thankfully, Krull is here to heal him, but she asks Koji if it's really okay for her to be solely focused on healing since she wanted to train as well. Koji says it's fine for Krull to just continue improving at a gradual rate, but Krull isn't satisfied with that response since she was level 45 when she first started this journey, and she's only level 58 now. David can see what's going on here, so he explains to Krull that Koji is likely worried about putting her through the same training as Rex since sages aren't meant for frontline combat, so it would be especially dangerous for her. But even so, Krull still says she wants to reach level 200, so she makes Koji promise not to hold back with her training. While they are on the topic of levels, David asks Koji how he managed to get to such a high level at such a young age. But it's a long story, so Koji says he doesn't want to talk about it right now. From what David has seen so far, it doesn't look like Koji became strong just for money, so he's more inclined to trust Koji's character. But Koji doesn't think anyone would be dumb enough to put their life at such great risk just for money. However, David informs him that pretty much everyone who raises their level to grow stronger and defeat stronger monsters does so specifically so they can earn more money and live an easier life. Alice asks if that means the stronger the monster is, the more money it drops when it is defeated, and Koji confirms it, but if that's really the case, then Alice wonders how much money a monster on par with the Demon King would drop since she recalls reading about one of those in the books back in the Demon Castle. Koji then turns to David and thanks him again for all his help because, thanks to him, the casino is going to be able to open without any issues. However, David says the real star of the show was Takako, since Takako handled almost all of the work with the casino's setup. David believes Takako is truly a man among men, but Alice corrects him and points out that Takako is actually a woman. David is surprised to hear that, but now that he thinks about it, he does recall Takako being unnaturally touchy with him when they first met, and Koji tells him she was probably hitting on him at the time, but he didn't realize. Eventually, Rex manages to defeat the goblin, and sure enough, he gets a massive boost to his experience, so at this rate, it won't be long before he reaches level 100 and unlocks his first skill. Speaking of skills, Rex asks Koji what his other 7 skills are since he never mentioned them earlier, and Koji explains that it's not like he was intentionally hiding them or anything. They just aren't worth using most of the time. He shows the others his status panel, and they find out that Koji's other 7 skills are just skills that make him able to finger flick stuff slightly better, and there's even a skill there that reduces his ability to use spells the higher his level is, which is why Koji can't use any magic despite his high level. All those trash skills made Koji really depressed for a while, but he eventually got over it, and he's sure Rex won't have to go through the same thing since heroes receive much better skills by default.